we should be able to discuss at the end of the presentation. Others at this time, allow me to introduce the speaker. And our speaker is Davis Wekesa. Davis Wekesa holds a bachelor's degree in medical laboratory sciences and works with Seba Lancet, Kenya. So at this point, allow me to introduce Davis. Davis, can you hear me?
Frederick, I can hear you clearly.
Welcome and proceed.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity to once again welcome you to this webinar. And it's always a pleasure to be back. It's always a pleasure to present. It's always a pleasure to be on this other side of the mic to ensure that we are learning something at the end of the day. And in that very same spirit, today we are going to discuss driving quality through continual improvement and a major focus on a holistic approach to laboratory excellence and patient-centered outcomes. And this is focused on ISO 15189 2022 guidelines. And for those ones of us who are not aware of ISO 15189 2022 guidelines, it falls under the GCLP guidelines. So for those of us who are accredited or we are in the process of accreditation, our focus should be ISO 15189. For those ones of us who have not undertaken this noble process of accreditation, then this discussion will be majorly focused on GCLP guidelines. That is good clinical laboratory practices. So by the end of this discussion, by the end of this engagement, we believe, or I believe, that we shall have a proper understanding of clauses number 8.6.1 to 8.6.2. That is what ISO 15189-2022 expects on continual improvement, the demands of that clause, and how we as laboratory technologists or laboratory personnel can implement that clause. Then by the end of this discussion, I also believe that we shall have a proper understanding of risk-based prioritization of improvement activities. By the end of this discussion, I also believe that we shall be able or be in a position to evaluate the effectiveness of the corrective and preventive actions that we have or we intend to institute in event of an understanding of communication improvement plans and how to engage staffs in our various work engagement places so that we can realize improvement. We will also be having a proper understanding of collecting, analyzing, and acting on feedback from users, patients, and personnel. We'll also be looking at the best practices when it comes to documenting feedback, actions, and communicating outcomes. We'll also be looking at how do we then leverage management reviews to reinforce continual improvement. And finally, we'll be looking to build a culture of transparency and proactive quality. So allow me at this point to just read through what the ISO 15189 clause 8.6 on improvement states, because I just want to peruse through it, through reading, because we are going to have an in-depth discussion on each of these sections later on in the presentation. So 8.6.1, continual improvement, it states that the laboratory shall continually improve the effectiveness of the management systems, including the pre-examination, examination, and post-examination processes as stated in the objectives and policies. So that means every laboratory or every clinical institution must have clearly specified objectives and policies that have been displayed, and these policies must deliberately indicate the need for continual improvement. Number B, the laboratory shall identify and select opportunities for improvement and develop, document, and implement any necessary actions. Improvement activities shall be directed at areas of highest priority based on risk assessment and opportunities identified. We shall have an in-depth discussion about that. I'm just building an introduction to that. These are not opportunities for improvement can be identified through risk assessment, use of the policies, review of the operational procedures, overall objectives, external evaluation reports, internal audit findings, complaints, corrective actions, management reviews, suggestions from personnel, suggestions or feedback from patients and users, analysis of data and EQA results. Shall have that. So that clause is continued to part C, where the laboratory shall evaluate the effectiveness of actions taken. Every action at the end of the day has to be evaluated to see if it meets the standard or not. And if it does not, it's either eliminated and replaced with a more effective aspect. Number D, the laboratory management shall ensure that the laboratory participates in continual improvement activities and encompass relevant areas and outcomes of patient care. Number E, the laboratory management shall communicate to personnel its improvement plans and related goals. 8.6.2, focused on laboratory patients, users, and personnel feedback. The laboratory shall seek feedback from its patients, users, and personnel. The feedback shall be analyzed and used to improve the management system, laboratory activities, and services to users. Records of feedback shall be maintained, including the actions taken. Communication shall be provided to personnel on actions taken arising from this feedback. Colleagues, I was just reading through what the ISO 15189 class 8.6 actually demands from us for those ones who are actually accredited. But for those ones who are not and may aspire, or who are not and do not have plans for that, of course, this continual improvement falls under GCLP guidance. We are going to have an in-depth discussion about this. So as I want to put into context continual improvement. And the best way to put into context continual improvement is trying to relate it to something that people actually associate themselves with. Let us look at clause 8.6 on continual improvement as a soccer game, a soccer team. So continual improvement, let us take it as a team. So a successful soccer team doesn't just focus on scoring goals. It focuses on designing a team that is able and capable to sustain performance for a very long duration. So this team will continuously train and improve every aspect of their performance. And when we look at this team, in a soccer team, for example, we have the defense for that team. And the defense for that team in our laboratory aspects, that reflects the pre-examination processes. That soccer team has a midfield. That midfield, in our analogy, we look at it as the examination processes. And that attack or the forward for that specific team in our laboratory settings, we look at it as post-examination processes. So just like this soccer team, the lab must improve all the phases of its processes to win the game of quality patient care. In soccer, we are looking at the ability to score goals, the ability to continuously win games. But in the laboratory settings, we are looking at the ability to provide quality patient-centered care. Identifying opportunities. So you as a team, you as the fans, you as a coach of that soccer team, you'll always look for opportunities for improvement, be it watching replays, be it analyzing mistakes, be it listening to players' feedback, be it looking and analyzing on the scoreboard. How are we performing? How can we improve? Where do we need adjustments? Where do we need improvement? The same applies to us. So after each match, coaches watch replays, analyze mistakes, listen to players' feedback, and look at the scoreboard. Similarly, lab reviews internal audits. It reviews complaints, is it from staff, be it from patients. It reviews errors. It reviews EQA results and patient or staff suggestions to identify areas that need work, areas that need improvement. So the focus is always on what went wrong, why did it go wrong, and what is the risk that is associated with what went wrong or what might go wrong, and what is urgent. And the urgency, we shall be discussing how we arrive at urgency. So just like deciding whether to strengthen the defense or improve the passing, the lab evaluates all these processes. So we must be in a position to review what is working well for us so that we continuously improve on that. We must be in a position to identify what is not working well for us so that we can identify the root causes or the root factors that are making us not perform well. Once we have identified the root causes, we must then implement the corrective and preventive actions so that we make sure we strengthen that. And once we have implemented the corrective actions, we must evaluate the effectiveness of these corrective actions after some time so that we see that whatever we have implemented is actually functional. Just as what I've mentioned, I've said we must evaluate the actions. So now that we have decided, we have changed our formation as our soccer team. We have moved from formation A to formation B. And we have actually tried out this formation in a soccer game. At the end of the game, we must ask ourselves, did our new formation work? Did it bring on board what we expected that it might bring? Did it deliver? If it did not deliver, then we have to rechange. We recheck the system and also probably change the performance index. So after changing tactics or training routines, the coach checks if the team is performing better. Likewise, after the lab makes improvements, it must evaluate if actions taken actually improve the outcomes. If you are making 30 errors, if there are 30 errors being picked out from assessment at the beginning of the month, then you have identified the root causes of those errors. You have identified the root causes of delayed TAT. You have identified the root causes of whatever problem that you have, and you have instituted improvement measures. It is that after a given duration of time, you must evaluate to see if these mechanisms you put in place are actually productive or not. What is the management role? And in this analogy, we are looking at the coach leads from the sidelines. So the coach does not just sit back and say, yes, I prepared the team, let it play the way we prepared it. No, it doesn't happen that way. This coach actually provides guidance. They provide strategy, and they support the team to continuously improve. Similarly, the lab management must lead from the front, ensuring all improvements tie back to better performance and patient-centered and patient care. Just as the coach's job is to help the team to win, not just to play. We do not just participate because we want to play. We participate because we have the intention, all the intentions of winning a game. So in lab settings, in this lab game, we must make deliberate improvements. And once those deliberate improvements have been made, the management must be on the forefront on this commitment to actually make sure that we achieve what is at hand. Communication. We must communicate. Like in the soccer analogy, the team meetings must be held before any big match. So before each game, the team holds briefings to discuss tactics, to discuss goals and lessons learned. In the lab, management must share improvement plans and goals with the team, so everyone knows the game plan and plays their part. Improvement is a cycle. If improvement involves everybody, improvement brings each department on board. So the management must share the improvement plans. The management must set clear goals and must discuss or share these goals with the team. And in this regard, the team means the lab personnel. So once we have this in place, it means that everybody understands what their responsibilities are. And these responsibilities can only be understood through thorough training on how we are going to achieve these goals that we have set. And through training, every individual feels part and parcel of this design or this game plan to actually achieve the goals at hand. 8.6.2 analogy finalized. We are looking at feedback from players, fans, and staff. A smart team listens to players, and in this time, in this scenario, our players are the personnel, you and me. It must listen to fans. The fans are the patients. That very individual who walks into that facility of yours, into that lab of theirs, trying to seek that service. And it must also listen to the support staff. The support staff in this context are the users to get better. If, for example, a striker says the midfield isn't supporting, or fans complain about performance, the coach must take note. Similarly, the lab must collect feedback. This feedback will be collected from personnel, will be collected from patients, will be collected from the users. And users in this case means the clinicians. So the lab must collect feedback, must review that feedback, must act on the feedback, and inform the staff on what was done, because this is our collective responsibility to that. I believe to that point, through this analogy, we have set an understanding, we have set clarity on what this topic actually entails. So let us dive into the requirements as stated. And I clearly said this training, this webinar is for all of us. For those of us who are accredited, I believe you are aware of this, and it focuses on class 8.6 and how we can implement it. For those of us who are not, this falls under GCLP, good clinical practice. So regardless of where you stand, this can be implemented in that measure. So what is continual improvement? Continual improvement refers to ongoing effort, persistent effort, effort that does not stop at any given time to enhance the effectiveness of laboratories QMS, quality management system. We have set standards. You, where you work, be it in that class G lab, be it in that class B lab, you have a given set of standards as dictated by ISO 15189 or as dictated by the GCLP guidelines. There is a standard that must be conformed to. So how do we continually improve on this standard? So GCLP, or through continual improvement, actually ensures that processes, services, and outcomes are consistently monitored and upgraded in response to internal assessment, client feedback, and performance data. We actually leverage on internal or external assessments the feedback that we are receiving from users, and users, this could be staffs, this could be patients, or could be the clinical team, and the performance data that we accumulate over time to make decisions on whether something is working or not. And if it's not working, we keep improving on it. So clause 8.6.1a, continual improvement on management system statement. I told you I read through this, but now this is the discussion we are going to have step by step on every aspect of that clause so that we see how effectively can we implement this. So the laboratory shall continually improve the effectiveness of the management system, including the pre-examination, examination, and post-examination processes as stated in the objectives and policies. At the introductory part of this training, I said that the management must declare the objectives for improvement, must have a policy or a statement policy that clearly indicates commitment to continual improvement. Continual improvement, as I said, it never stops. It's a continuous process. So it clearly indicates that we must look for opportunities for improvement from our examination processes and post-examination processes. So let us dive into it and see what are these areas of improvement that we can pick up. The list might not be comprehensive enough, but I believe you understand what pre-examination processes are. So pre-examination phase. This includes procedures before actual testing begins. And in this, we are looking at how best do we make these procedures work for us? How best do we make these procedures actually conform to the standard? How best do we make these procedures actually fulfill the GCLP requirements? Key aspects that we must consider or we may consider: test ordering. And when we are talking about test ordering, we are talking of completeness of the request forms. First, ask yourself, where you work, do you have a request form? If yes, that is good. If no, that is an identified area that you need to capitalize on and improve. Then number two, how are these request forms filled? Are they completely filled, or are there some gaps on the filling of request form? If it's completely filled, that is good. Keep the good job going. But if we identify the gaps in request form, we all know the requirement, the basic requirements of a request form. We know that it must fulfill some basic requirements. That could be a discussion of another day, but the completeness of a request form actually refers to how well has this request form been completed. Does it have the patient name? Does it have the patient age? Does it have the patient gender? Does it actually indicate the test that has been requested? Does it actually indicate who ordered this test? Does it have a phase for clinical information that accompanies the patient? So if it has all that, then ensure that these spaces have been filled completely and it has been filled well. So does that request form has a verified clinician contact? In case there's an emergency or a critical result, we must have a verifiable clinician contact to call to make sure that these critical results are received in a timely process. So there must be a verifiable clinician contact on the request form documented. Who ordered this test? And in case of a critical results, how do we get to this clinician as such? Are the tests ordered properly selected? Okay, you must make your request form user-friendly. Make the request form user-friendly so that the clinicians are able and in a position to quickly select tests. And if they are not selecting tests, it must have enough space for them to write tests that are as needed. Patient identification, of course, it's a norm. Always use 2 or more identifiers, 2 or more patient identifiers. If you have one that is a gap, we must look on ways of improving on that. If you have 2 or more, that is good, continue with the good job. We must have a verification at the collection point. Are the samples being collected verifiable at that point? Can we actually trace it back to the phlebotomist? Does that request form or actually that sample be traced back to whoever collected it? So sample collection, we are looking at, do you have a policy or an SOP that details sample collection. And in this sample collection procedures, we are looking at proper technique was used to collect this sample, correct tubes are being used to collect this sample. The requisitions actually give the time of collection of the samples. For this actually applies to the time-sensitive samples, especially the likes of cortisol and such. Staff training. If you have a policy in hand, were staffs actually trained on that policy? And if yes, they were trained on policy, do we have mechanisms in place to actually verify the competence of this staff? Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, competency is actually put in place to make sure that you are continuously improving on the tasks that you are taking. And the knowledge is not lost between training and actualization, because we want to make sure that you as that lab professional discharging these duties, you continuously discharge the highest standards of these duties as such. So I know, and you know very well, that techniques or skills might be lost over time once they are not put in use. And this actually goes to those of us who sit in management. Those of us who sit in management, we lose a lot of skills because you might not be actively engaged in laboratory activities. So if actually the manager of a given lab setting does not participate in phlebotomy settings, does not undertake or is not evaluated for competence in phlebotomy aspects, then that lab manager or that management staff sitting in that office not participating has no business in attending to a client in phlebotomy. Only those clients should be attended to by staffs who have been trained and deemed competent in those areas. We're also looking at labeling and documentation, barcoding, labeling accuracy and traceability, if there are any issues in it. If our processes are good, we say thank you and we move on, and we continuously make sure that we offer those services as they are. But if there are gaps that are evaluated when it comes to barcoding, labeling, accuracy, and traceability, then we must action those gaps. So pre-examination processes also, continued sample handling and transportation. Do we have temperature control for our samples? Are samples being delivered timely to the lab? Is there a chain of custody? If any of this is not available, then that is a gap that we have identified, and we must put in place the corrective action and preventive action so that we make sure we eliminate any gaps to make sure that the service we are giving at the end of the day conforms to the standard as such. Sample reception, we are looking at integrity checks. And integrity checks, we are looking at sample hemolysis. Is the sample hemolyzed? Is it a lipemic sample? Is it the quantity enough? Is it what? So many things that surround integrity checks of a sample. So if the sample does not meet the integrity criteria, then that sample must be rejected. But if it is rejected, the degree of rejection actually forms a basis of improvement. The questions we should ask yourself, especially if the lab is directly participating in the collection of those samples, the question we should ask ourselves, what is actually making the rejection criteria so high? What is it that we are not getting right? What is it that is giving us a gap so that we have so many rejected samples? Once we identify that, we get the most appropriate root cause for that, and we action it as appropriate. The LIMS logging, do we as a facility or personnel comply with LIMS, that is Laboratory Information Management System logging? Are there gaps? If yes, those gaps should be identified and actioned as appropriate with appropriate corrective action and preventive action. Client communication, we must have clear instructions in place. If instructions are not there, we must have policies directing that, especially self-collection specimen. Self-collection specimen, I'm talking of specimens like 24-hour urine collection. You won't be there with that client to collect, to monitor collection of that specimen. You won't be there with that client, especially in blood rooms for semen collection. You won't be there in one, two additional cases. So this client is actually relying on the instructions that you are giving, instructions that have been put somewhere. So there must be clear, simple, direct to the point instructions. Do not overburden the client with so many instructions that before I think where they are supposed to collect the sample, the information is already distorted. So let us give clear, concise instructions to clients. And if these instructions, we must have a standardized way of communication. That is why in established areas, you will get an SOP on how to guide clients on semen collection, an SOP on how to guide clients on 24-hour urine collection and such. So that if this client does not find me, for example, he finds a colleague, the colleague should be in a position to give exactly the same communication as I give. There must be standardized processes. If these processes are not there, then that is a gap that has been identified. We must come up with appropriate improvement on that. Responsiveness to queries. There must be clear guidelines on how to respond to queries at any time, at any given point, across the array of personnel. Let us not have one individual giving clear, understandable feedback to clients whenever a query is raised, but the next one does not give clear instruction to clients or response to queries. At the end of the day, if the processes are standardized, then we shall give uniform feedback, uniform way of responding to queries as such. Staff competency, I said there must be an SOP on staff training. There must be an SOP in place on refresher sessions. There must be an SOP in place on error tracking. SOP training, sometimes it baffles me to see colleagues, it's not possible for a new staff to walk into a clinical lab and within a month they are fully working. In fact, some start working the very same week. So you ask yourself this question: are there SOPs guiding onboarding of a new staff? If yes, what does this SOP say about onboarding of a new staff? For clear settings, you might find that this staff need to be trained. That might take around 3 or 4 weeks for this staff to be fully trained. This staff actually has to read manuals and acknowledge them. That is another 1 week or so. This staff has to have competency assessed. That is within. To me, I usually look at it that a new staff being onboarded takes around 2 months tops for that staff to be competent enough to discharge duties. But you get a staff today, oh, you call me and tell me, Wekesa, I have a locum for you today, but I've never stepped in your facility. That is number one. So I do not even understand the processes. However experienced you are, when you step in a new place, you must conform to the standards of that place. So it's not just possible. So let us look at how best are we conforming our processes to make sure that the end user is the client, the end user is that doctor, actually believes in what we are doing, actually gets satisfied with the outcome that we are giving. So kindly, if these things are missing, if, for example, you are training staffs and you are not doing competence assessment, we do not have a way of justifying the competence of these staffs. If at all there are no refresher sessions, I mentioned clearly when I was beginning this presentation that skills can be lost once they are not put in use for quite some time. They can be lost. So there must be refresher sessions every now and then. It is a continuous process. It never stops. Examination phase. Most people call it analytical phase. And this is where actually testing occurs. Key aspects to actually evaluate. Test methods. The test method you have in your setting. Are those methods validated? If yes, that is good. You have the data, you can show, you can actually justify that. If not, that is a gap that has been identified. It means validation of those methods needs to take place. Do you have SOPs? Yes. If yes, that is good. If there are no SOPs, that is a gap. We must put in place SOPs. And having SOPs is one thing. Adhering to those SOPs is a separate thing. So we look at it, yes, we have the SOPs and staffs are complying to those SOPs. That is a general rule. That is a GCAP guideline. You must conform to the established SOPs. If staffs have been noted not to conform or comply to the SOPs at hand, then that is a gap. That is a gap. Updates, SOPs should be continuously updated to meet the requirements at hand. So this is a continuous process. You must have a declared duration upon which you review your SOPs for implementation. And any reviewed SOP, staff must be retrained on that reviewed SOP for implementation to take place. We must also review instrumentation. We are looking at calibration. Do we do calibration of our instrument? If yes, that is good. If no, that is a gap that needs to be evaluated. Are there maintenance logs? Do we actually maintain these machines? And if there's maintenance of these machines, can only be confirmed through maintenance logs. Are we the kind of people who chart maintenance logs without actually maintaining the machine? If the machine has to be maintained daily, weekly, and monthly, or as needed, that maintenance has to be done. Let us not be the people who actually go and tick the maintenance logs without actually maintaining those. So if you find out that the machine gives records, it keeps a record of your maintenance logs, and you go to the machine, you find that maintenance was not done. But when you go to the physical maintenance logs, you find that it has been ticked. That is a gap. You must find out what is happening. And once we address that gap, we are improving. We also need to have backup plans, that is backup machines or data backup from our instrumentation. We must have that in place. If we are missing that, then that is a gap. That is an area of improvement. Reagents and consumables, we are looking at expiry checks. Do you actually, once you receive the reagent, do you look at the expiry? Are we putting expiry reagents in use? That is a gap. And if we have actually the policy of utilization of expired reagents, there must be a clear depiction in that policy of what happens beyond the limitations that have been given. Stock management, are we effectively managing our stock? If yes, that is good. If no, that is a gap for improvement. There must be standardized policies in place to actually check on that. Do we have lot validation, lot-to-lot validations? If yes, that is good. Thank you for the conformance. But if no, that is a gap. We must look for ways of identifying the root cause and making sure that we close it so that we continuously improve on that. Quality control, internal QC tracking, we must track our QC. Our QC is doing well, yes, that is good. If they have if QCs are failing, we must find the underlying cause, the root cause for that, close it, evaluate the effectiveness after a while. Trend analysis, corrective actions, of course, that has to be looked at. Staff competency, there must be any staff who comes in, regardless of where you are coming, whether you are coming from a class G lab, if you are coming from a class G lab and you are going to work in a class B lab, it doesn't matter. You must be trained on the ways of a class B lab. There must be initial training for the staff in all cases. Probably you are doing ELISAs in your class G lab, but when you come to a class B, the only thing you are getting is serology, and it becomes a problem. So you must be trained, and there must also be ongoing training for that. There must be authorizations. You cannot just walk to my facility and tell me, yes, I might give you a chance to do a test, but I can't give you a chance to result that test. And even if you result it, I must verify before those results are actually released to the client. So there must be some access limitations even on our laboratory information systems. For more experienced and competent personnel must be given the access to actually verify the reports before they are released. But for the junior staff that are under still training, they must be given an opportunity, yes, to result, but they cannot verify that result. Without verification, the result cannot go to the patient. There must also be feedback loops to make sure that the staff actually give feedback to the management, and the management actually gives feedback and policy dictation to staff. Data recording and integrity, we must look at real-time entry. Does our system allow us to have real-time data entry? If yes, that is good, we are confirming. If no, that is a gap. We must work with the management to make sure that we address that. Does our system actually leave audit trails? Every laboratory information management systems must actually leave an audit trail. If the system is not doing giving an audit trail, there is a problem somewhere. If I went to my laboratory information management system and changed something there, it must be visible enough that so and so went to this system and changed. If it does not leave that trail, there is a problem. And our systems must be validated. The providers of the system must give you a validation report. How then do you know that this system actually works? There must be yearly validation reports that should actually come from the system providers and shared with you. Contamination prevention, we are looking at workflow control, PPE use, environmental checks. Do we have environmental checks in place? And are we actually complying with the environmental checks systems that we have put in place? If yes, that is good. If not, that is a gap that needs to be filled so that we continually improve. As staff actually have the required PPE, is the required PPE actually available to staff? If yes, that is good. If no, that is a gap that needs to be put to closure. Post-examination phase, we are looking at results review, reporting, and clinical clinician communication. Key aspects that we might actually look at results review. Results review, we are looking at dual verification. Dual verification, it just means dual or triple verification, triple entry. You are just entering a result 3 times. For example, if it's a quantitative result, let me talk of an ESR of 20. I put 20 where I'm supposed to result. It pops up another screen. I put another 20. It pops up again. I put another 20. Actually, that makes us be sure that actually what you have put is the correct result. Because in case of any discrepancy, the system will flag it out, and you are able to assign a dual verification. In other sense, also means that when I do the test, it shouldn't be me who actually verifies the report. It should be another staff or a senior personnel who verifies that report before it goes out or such. It should not just be put in the system and it automates itself directly to the client without us actually doing internal checks to make sure that it conforms. If your system then allows you to do that, it means there's a problem. Okay? If your system allows your result to automate directly to the client without internal verification checks, it means there's a problem, and that is a gap that needs to be addressed for continual improvement. Sign-off reports must be signed off. Ask yourself this question: are our reports being signed off? Yes. If it's yes, that is good. If there's no sign-off on reports, that is a gap that has to be addressed. Delta checks, and when we are talking about delta checks, for those who understand what it is, we are talking of ability to detect significant changes in patient test results over time by comparing the current results to the previous ones. We are comparing the result that we have right now to the previous results of a patient. Also, these actually delta checks helps us flag potential errors of unexpected clinical changes. For example, I can the purpose of delta checks actually is to identify pre-analytical, analytical, and post-analytical errors such as specimen mislabeling or wrong patient. Delta checks in this sense means that I have this client who has been coming in on a weekly basis for HB check. And the HB of this client has been ranging between 11.5 and 12.5. This data has been accumulated for the past like 4 or 5 months. This client, the HB has always been between 11.5 and 12.5. But today, this client walks in and I do a HB check, it gives me 5. Okay? You do a HB check and it gives you 5. So once you look at this current result that you have and the previous history of testing, no, you start suspecting something. You start asking yourself, what could be impacting this result to really go down like this? We must look into it. So as a lab, we must institute delta checks in our systems. Those are very important. And this, unfortunately, is only applicable to those labs that actually have laboratory information management systems, because it can track the test outcomes over a given duration of time. Okay? Result reporting, we look at the TAT monitoring. Every lab must declare its TAT to clients. If it's not pinned somewhere where a client can visibly see, you must actually share the TAT of this client with these clients in your phlebotomy room during collection. It's very simple. It's a matter of, I've taken this sample, ABCD, we are going to do ABCD. This is the duration within which you will have your results. And the TAT that you are giving should actually conform to what you have in writing, because every lab must have estimated turnaround times for their test performance. So the question is, you ask yourself, do we have established TAT timelines as a lab? If yes, that is good. And if it's yes, we have established TAT timelines. Do we actually conform to these TAT timelines? If yes, that is fine. But the problem now comes in on the converse. I do not have established TAT timelines. I do not share with our clients. I do not share with my clients or my patients the TAT, so that I have constant questions about Daktari, when am I having this? I come to PPIN to check. Before me as an individual, if you told me 40 minutes, I'll sit somewhere and wait for 40 minutes and come back and ask you after that 40 minutes. So if we do not have established and communicated turnaround times, that is a gap which has to be actioned upon. Are they clearly formatted? Our reports, do we have a clear format of reports? We must have a standardized way of reporting. We must have, I can take an example of malaria reporting. If you are reporting malaria as the number of parasites per microliter of blood, then it should be documented that that is the standard way of reporting malaria in your lab. Because I might come in as a new staff and I start reporting malaria as the percentage of parasitized red blood cells. It's a right way of reporting. But then we have two very different reporting systems in place. So in short, there must be clearly indicated, actioned upon ways of formatting your reports. The accuracy of reports, does your report actually reflect whatever you have tested? If I have a measure of 12 on LT on the machine, that LT on the LIS and the physical report that I'm giving the patient should actually be that. Result communication, notification protocols, readbacks, and documentation. We must have, especially for our referral facilities, or those ones of us actually having a shared system of operation in hospital settings, we must have notification protocols. Once the results are ready and have been entered in the laboratory information management system and it has been verified, notifications must be sent to the clinicians that the result is ready. Do we have those notifications? Yes, if they are there, that is good. But if they are not there, that is a gap that needs to be identified and actioned as such. Readbacks, for those of us who are not familiar with the readbacks, I can just have an expounded undertaking on the same. So readbacks is actually a verification process where critical information, typical test results or instructions or data is repeated back verbatimly by the receiver to the sender to confirm the accuracy. For example, you want to communicate some results, some critical results to the patient. So like this, the sender communicates a result or instruction, e.g., the patient potassium is 6.8 millimole per liter. The receiver writes it down, then repeats it back exactly as stated. Both parties document the communication. And in such cases, we are looking at who communicated, what was communicated, the time and date that readback was actually performed and verified. Okay? You are communicating your results to a clinician. You say, I have a client, the client that you sent in for electrolyte testing, potassium is 155 or 160, just using that as a casual example. The clinician, on hearing what you have actually said, he said, did you say that the potassium is 155? Then I say, yes. That is the readback. That it's actually a way, a system in which we make sure that the communication that we are passing is actually taken the way it is. You only read back to confirm, so that the sender gives the receiver a notification that that is actually what he said. There must be systems of documentation in place. If there are no systems of documentation in place, that is a gap. It needs to be filled as such. Clinician interaction, handling queries, feedback, and service quality. Of course, there must be SOPs in place to have that standardized. And if they are not there, that is a gap we must actually put in place. And they might be there, but we are not conforming to them. So in such events, we must also make sure that we actually emphasize that we conform to that. Data archiving, secure storage. Do we have secure storage backups for secure storage for our data? If yes, that is good. If no, then that is a gap that needs to be put in place, to be actioned upon. Backups, do we have backups for our data in case there's a system crash? What happens? How do we action that? There must be backups. So if backups are not there, or we have not implemented that, that is a gap that we need to evaluate and put in place. Retention policy, the duration over which you can retain documents or whatever, or samples at site before disposing them, it must be clear. If you store blood samples at site for 7 days, it must be clear that that is a retention policy, and it must be adhered to. If it's not there and it's not, or it's there and it's not being adhered to, that is a gap that needs to be actionable. Non-conformance tracking, there must be ways in which we can track our non-conformance, and non-conformance can come in various ways. Non-conformance can come in various ways, including delayed reports, complaints, and what have you. So we must have systems in place to actually pick out, track them out, action them as appropriate, follow it up with effectiveness evaluation to see that the processes that we have put in place as action remedies are actually working. Post-analytical review, Of course, clinical correlation, report audits, peer review, this has to be put in place. If not, then that is a gap, it has to be implemented. But if we have actually implemented this, we must make sure then that we continually conform to it so that we satisfy whatever happens. So clause 8.6.1b, the laboratory shall identify and select opportunities for improvement and develop, document, and implement any necessary actions. Improvement activities shall be directed at areas of highest priority based on risk assessment and opportunities identified. I mentioned when I was starting this presentation of giving prioritization based on risk assessment. We are going to just have a look at that in a few. Explanation to this clause. The clause emphasizes on systematic risk-based and documented approach to improvement. Number one, as emphasis on that, the clause actually tells us that we must be in a position as a lab to identify opportunities for improvement. So the lab must proactively and reactively identify areas that could benefit from enhancement. Proactively means before something happens. Reactively is after something has happened. And this actually focuses on to give us a distinctive aspect of proactiveness, meaning preventive action, and reactiveness means the corrective action that we put in place. So we must also proactively and reactively identify these areas that we can benefit from enhancement. These opportunities might come from internal audits for those of us who have internal audits, and each facility should actually have internal audits. I believe each facility has either a quality assurance department or a quality improvement team. Those quality improvement team or quality assurance department should be in a position to actually have internal system checks through internal audits, because these are the very people, you as a staff, you as a facility-based quality improvement team, you understand these processes much better than even an external assessment. So internal audit should actually point out majority of the issues that we have, so that we have sufficient time to have them actioned and closed for good. Opportunities might also come from client feedback or complaints. When a client raises a complaint or gives a feedback, that is an area of improvement, and it should be documented and actioned as appropriate. Non-conformities and incident reports. Of course, I gave an example of non-conformity like delayed reports. That is an area that we must pick out and action as appropriate. Staff suggestions or observations. And this is where I want to emphasize. Staff suggestions or observations. 90 to 100% of the issues that we have in our lab settings, or issues that we have in our lab settings as management, staffs are always aware of those issues. But in one way or another, they feel that it's always the responsibility of the management team to identify and sort those issues out. So having staffs raise their suggestions, having close one-on-one engagements with staffs in your lab setting actually gives you an opportunity to have first-hand information of actually what is not working, what needs to be changed. So this goes to my colleagues who are in management positions or as such, that have personalized engagement with your staffs. Staffs always have first-hand info of what is not working. And in one way or another, due to the feeling that they feel it's a management responsibility, these things might not be picked out in time. So it must be clear that we listen to staffs, we actually action or work on suggestions that have been given by staffs and the observation that we make. Of course, we can have opportunities for improvement actually actioned through EQS and PT reports. Our feedback from the EQS or professions testing reports actually gives us what failed? For example, what failed? Why did it fail? What are we going to put in place so that it works next time? How are we going to correct this? So external quality assessments, EQ, and proficiency testing actually gives us room for improvement. That is an opportunity. A failed, for example, a failed EQA outcome gives you an opportunity for improvement. It makes you think outside the box. What actually worked? What actually did not work? What do we need to put in place? And how are we going to make sure that what did not work is actually sorted out for good? We look at that. Of course, review of quality indicators. If your quality indicator, for example, is sample rejection rates, TAT, we have an array of quality indicators, and quality indicators setting in a lab should actually cover the three phases: the pre-analytical, post-analytical, and analytical phases. So if your quality indicators do not cover all the three phases of evaluation, it means there is a gap. It must be identified. That is an opportunity for improvement. So through evaluation of those quality indicators, for example, your quality indicator is to attain the set TAT on all in-house tests. And you find out that there are cases of your TAT that are going beyond. Those ones that are way beyond the set TAT, it's giving you an opportunity to recheck and see what are you not doing right, so that we have a reset mode on that. Risk assessment, of course, that also gives us an opportunity, and risk assessment is a proactive. Risk assessment is a proactive way of looking at things. You just evaluate before they happen, put preventive mechanisms in place before they happen. We do not wait for something to happen before we look at that. An example of that, an internal audit reveals repeated errors in sample labeling. So that is an opportunity to improve sample handling.
Davis, are you able to hear me? Davis? All right. I don't know whether the participants can hear him or can hear me. Maybe you can just indicate there. Seems like I lost him. Very well. I think we lost him, but I'm sure he will be back. It's a very, very wonderful presentation. Davis, we lost you. You are breaking. Are you able to hear me? All right. So thank you, everyone, and all the participants who have been following this presentation keenly. I have enjoyed the presentation. It was such eye-opening, well-researched, and also I've read your comments. I can see most of us were keenly following the presentation. It was well articulated, and we've lost Davis, unfortunately. But I'm sure he will be joining in a moment. So I'll just read your comments, and can see you have a couple of questions, so that we can just, all share. I'm sure this is an area that is of interest for everyone, because I know that quality is everyone's responsibility. And I can see some of you saying it's very hard to implement this in the public space. But I'm sure that there's something that we are learning together, and there are areas that we can improve, so that we can just give out results to our patients, results that will help them. Otherwise, I'll just read your questions, and also I will be able to read your concerns. I'm not sure if there's anyone who wants to comment, because you may raise your hand, that maybe I can give you just a minute for you to comment, or maybe to ask your question. So I'm sure all of us are not new to this practice, and quality or QMS is something that we practice in our day-to-day. And I would love to even read some of your best practices from where you are practicing from. And maybe I'll just read a few of your comments. Brian Osoro says a lot has been said. Let's adhere to good clinical laboratory practices. Mary Ndotono saying good presentation. Samson Okinyi, a very good articulated presentation. Jane Kaburu is saying informative and articulate presentation. Davis, are you back?
Yes, I believe so. Can you get me clearly?
Yes, we can get you. So maybe you can just wind up so that you can take up a few questions that are here.
Okay, I think let me just rush through it. Thank you. I believe I'm still audible.
Yes, please.
Thank you. We are looking at select and prioritize opportunities for improvement. That is something that the high severity and high likelihood of occurrence gives us a high priority for implementing and such. Develop and document improvement actions must be well planned. Who, what, when. Who is to do this, what has to be done, and when has to be done, documented in CAPA logs and quality improvement plans. It must be communicated to relevant staff. For example, an example of documentation: root cause, misuse of laboratory information functions. Corrective action should be train all staff on laboratory information management results verification model. Responsible person is the QA officer due to on that date that has been stipulated there. Implement actions and monitor effectiveness. Every action that has been implemented after some duration of time, it has to be evaluated whether it's fit for use or not. So once implemented, monitor if the action has addressed the problem, the effectiveness, revise actions if necessary, record results for follow-up or audit. For example, after retraining staff, track sample labeling errors for 3 months and confirm reduction. The bottom line of 8.6.1 ties continual improvement directly to objective evidence, risk-based prioritization, structured documented action.
Davis, are you able to share your screen? Is it working?
Yeah, from my end is actually shared. Let me just...
Okay. Can you just share?
Let me reshare. I believe it's visible now.
Yes, please.
Oh, thank you. Just a bit. So, is it okay?
It's all right. Yeah, it's visible now. You can proceed.
All right. Let me just rush to the end. How to... Let me minimize this. Okay, how to evaluate effectiveness step by step. First, define the success criteria. Clearly state what success looks like before implementation. For example, if you want to reduce labeling errors, make it clear in this manner: labeling errors reduced to less than 1% within 4 weeks. Monitor key indicators, track performance using data, KPIs, logs, audits. Example, audit log shows no labeling errors in 3 weeks. Review evidence, check if staff are complying, systems are updated, and the outcome has been improved. For example, post-training audit confirms that all staff use the correct laboratory information procedure. Engage stakeholders, include QA, lab staff, and management in reviewing of the results for sustainability. QA team confirms actions are effective and sustained. Document the evaluation, record your findings in CAPA logs, audit reports, and management reviews. This must be captured as clearly as possible. So what happens, just quickly, if you find out that the actions you have put in place are ineffective? If actions are not effective, reanalyze the root cause. Probably the root cause that you gave was just one of the root cause, one of the causes and not the root cause. So reanalyze the root cause. Number two, after you have reanalyzed the root cause, revise the action plan. And the action plan in this sense actually means the corrective action and the preventive action you are putting in place. If you feel that whoever was assigned this responsibility did not actually implement it well, reassign the responsibilities or update the SOPs at hand. And if that does not prove, then consider escalating the issue to management review. This creates a feedback loop for continual improvement as encouraged in ISO 15189. So, of course, the tools to support evaluation, those are internal audits, KPI, trend analysis, and conformity. Colleagues, just allow me, I want to rush and talk about management. Because here is where we as management people, sometimes we fail to understand what actually happens. The laboratory management shall communicate to personnel its improvement plans and related goals. Explanation, clear communication, of course. The communication from the management to the staffs must be timely and accurate as possible. Each staff actually has the right to be informed about the current improvement plans. These can actually be shared through meetings, notes board, or what have you. So transparency of goals, improvement objectives should be clearly shared, including timelines and expected outcomes. Staff engagement, communicating plans encourages staff involvement, ownership, and motivation. Let us not keep the plans in offices. Plans put in offices cannot be implemented as unless it's the management that decides to implement. But then if the management decides to implement on its own without involving the staffs do not own up to that. Okay, so realization of the set goals will be a problem. Methods of communication, of course, use multiple channels such as staff meetings, have clear staff emails and newsletters, notice board, and training sessions to have this staff actually fully aware of what goes on. Provide ongoing progress reports and feedback to personnel so that we make sure that our personnel are continually abreast of what is going on. Two-way communication, encourage staff to ask questions and provide input on improvement activities. It is a deliberate way of actually getting to know what these staff actually want, how they feel this should be implemented. You know, most of the communication that actually comes from management is actually seen as commands. But the ones that has been raised as suggestions from staffs, they feel part of it, part and parcel of it, okay? Laboratory patients, users, and end user feedback, active feedback collection, requirements and explanation. We as a lab must have active feedback collection mechanism. This feedback must be collected from patients. They must be collected from users, the clinicians, they are the end users of our results, other healthcare providers for those of us who are in referral systems, the personnel, the laboratory staff, and support staff. You must ask feedback from your internal users. So feedback may be collected through surveys, online or paper-based, suggestion boxes, interviews or focus groups, incident reports and complaints, which actually carries that. Analysis and use of the feedback. All collected feedback must be analyzed to identify trends, to identify areas of improvement, to identify potential risks and service gaps. Once these risks and service gaps have been identified, they must be actioned. So results must be used to improve the management system, enhance the laboratory services, and refine procedures and workflows. Documentation, the feedback must be received, it must be documented, analysis has to be done. The action plan to take care of that feedback must be clear and must be shared by staff. Follow-up and communication personnel must be informed of actions taken in response to their feedback, encouraged to continue giving input, build trust, and promote culture of continuous improvement and transparency between the management and as such. An example of feedback use, clinician feedback on delayed reports. may lead to changes or revision of reporting workflows. Patient complaints about unclear instructions lead to prompt improvement on pre-test communication. Staff suggestions lead to changes in sample handling SOP for continued efficiency of the services. Actually, I've just rushed through. Maybe one day we might have a clear understanding on this, but it's my prayer that the management of the platform can have this slide shared out to our colleagues so that they have a first-hand understanding. Thank you, Mr. Frederick. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Davis, for articulating this so well. I want to say that it was quite informative, and I can see a couple of questions and comments, and maybe I can just read a few, and then I can read a few questions, and then we can proceed in that manner. So Nehemiah Kahato is saying, learning is taking place. We are implementing a CQA project in our laboratory, and for sure, this will go a long way in building my capacity. So thank you so much, Nehemiah, and we believe that we are building capacity for everyone, so that from wherever we are practicing from, we can be able to just do the right thing. And maybe I can read from, this is Tony Nyagura, is saying, the challenges we get is staff scarcity that leads to high workload and staff attitude. I would like to urge our colleagues to like their work. Otherwise, Davis, let me read a few questions from our participants. And I'll start with the first question from, maybe this is Humphrey Moshiri. Quite a nice presentation from Wakesa. Mine is that we need to differentiate validation and verification on aspects of methods and reagent lots. Okay, Davis, you can make a quick maybe comment on that.
Okay, on matters validation and verification, validation is actually done by the manufacturer before these things come to the market. Verification is actually what you do in-house to make sure that whatever report that the manufacturer has given actually stands true. Okay.
Thank you.
When we are talking of verification, we are talking of internal processes to reevaluate what the manufacturer has said.
Thank you so much for that. I'll read from Alvin Kinji. Thank you, the presenter. Regarding Delta checks, in case a lab does not have LIS that tracks patient results via Delta check, what would you recommend to such a lab?
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I said the downside of Delta check is this. One, it's not applicable to first-time patients. You cannot have a Delta check to a first-time patient. Number two, it requires a proper laboratory information management system and trained personnel. Unfortunately, unless these patient results are usually documented, you have a way in which I've seen people being creative. You document every result in a given, you have a dedicated book, you would document results, but that one, of course, is very tedious in a way. So that this patient came on March 1st, you documented their results. On March 2nd, that is it. It's a continuous thing. But then it tells you that you have to track back these patient results manually, which is very tedious. That is the downside of Delta checks. It actually just needs a system. If there's no system, it makes it so difficult and you might miss out something. Frederick, back to you.
Thank you. Maybe I'll read, I'll just read this from Leonard Bosco. He's also commenting on the difference between validation and he's saying good reply on the difference between validation and verification, which most people are always not aware of. Thank you so much, Leonard, for tuning in and for your comment. So Davis, I'll read a question from This is Kimitei Cornelius. He says, good presentation, my friend and senior colleague Davis. Thank you for bringing up this crucial discussion. A few questions. One, can continual quality improvement drive the adoption of a more cost-effective or precise lab techniques? And again, how does the implementation of new technology such as full automation, AI, and or LIS affect continual quality improvement outcomes? Davis?
So thank you, Mitei. I believe I know that name. I've worked with him somewhere. Continual quality improvement. Let me start with the second bit. Full automation and AI integration. These are just part of the processes of making our services better. And that is actually a justification to continual improvement. When lab services were actually introduced some years back, there was no automation. There was no instrumentation. We have moved from dry chemistry, we have come to wet chemistry, we have come to full automation, we have done ABCD. So that is just a justification that we are growing. And if we are growing, it means implementation and continual improvement is taking place. I believe I did not just get clearly that very first aspect. Frederick, if you can repeat the very first place area.
All right.
Aspects. How continual improvement impacts?
You can hear me?
Yes, I can.
He's asking, can continual quality improvement drive the adoption of a more cost-effective or precise lab technique?
Yes, it can, and it does happen. So whenever we are focusing on improvement, it means we are correcting what is not working. And when we correct what is not working, we end up coming up with a best version of what we have at hand. And I think that answers that question. Yes, it can, and it changes.
Thank you so much. I think the others are generally comments, but maybe I can read this last one from, all right. Okay. I can see this from Ngeno Peter, thank you. Okay. Explain how the integration of risk-based thinking and process approach in ISO 15189-2022 and GCLP contributes to both lab quality improvement and patient-centered outcomes. Okay, Ngeno is always here with provoking questions, and we welcome this.
No problem. It's good to know that learning is taking place. So one, we said risk-based prioritization. Risk-based prioritization actually focuses on an aspect or an opportunity for improvement that has the highest severity and it's highly likely to occur, that's given precedence. So in the context of the question that he has raised, for example, if an opportunity for improvement or a gap has been identified and that gap directly impacts on patient outcome, for example, diagnosis, misdiagnosis, or delayed reports, okay? That means that opportunity for improvement or the gap needs to be given the highest priority of actioning. Hope he has that at home. And once it's given the highest priority,
we lost you, Davis. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. So I think we lost him again, but I think colleagues, it's been a very interesting discussion, and maybe and maybe I can just read your comments on what are your thoughts regarding our topic today. So I can see it's quite overwhelming. You have really enjoyed the presentation. So maybe I'll just read these ones and then we shall be able to end. So I've seen your request for the slides. Majority of you want the slides. I've shared our WhatsApp group. Ensure you join. I will be able to share the slides there, and also any other material that we may find is relevant. So maybe I can just read a few things from Tony Nyangura. He's saying quality improvement is persistent, it doesn't end. Thank you, Tony. George Ondijo is saying presentation was good. Esther Chalo, very informative. I can also read from William Odhiambo, informative presentation. Edwin Keter, clear and precise to the point, nice presentation. Patrick Osango, good recap on lab practice basics. Thank you, Patrick. So I think you've had, we have both enjoyed the presentation. Celine Okuta, very informative. Thank you, Celine. Martin Juguna says, I am now informed. Philip Kipiego, factual and very necessary presentation. Davis, if you're back, maybe you can give your final remarks as we bring this to a close.
I believe you can get me.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I was giving some feedback on our professional colleague who had asked a question. I never know I had been cut out. But I believe through a clear understanding of this presentation, he is able to build on that. My final closing remarks, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, are as below. It's just to encourage us that not planning to improve is actually planning to fail. Not planning to improve is actually planning to fail. Let us be deliberate. Let us take action when it's needed. Let us be honest and transparent in the actions that we put in place to solve a problem. Let us not put in place things because of audit conformance. Let us be realistic. Let us put in place things because we want to give a better outcome to our patient. And we are always available to give guidance, to give trainings, whatever section through the LMSK that might be needed, we are always available. Thank you, Frederick. Thank you, team. Thank you, LMSK. Thank you, members, for listening to me. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to more discussions inside. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Davis, and all the members. I can see someone is saying he would want this to be done. Martha Kipkorir is saying, I request a training on CAPA generally. So kindly don't die alone. Just reach out. You can always reach out to us, to LMSK. We have a team of experts and people who are passionate about quality, and we can always, assist and just help you where you feel you are incapacitated. Otherwise, it's always a pleasure to host you here at the LMSK platform. And I can still see someone asking for our WhatsApp group link. I think I shared it. And maybe just before you drop off, just look at the chat box because I have reshared it again so that you can just join. I've seen someone asking for certificates. Indeed, this session is KMLTB accredited. It will attract 3 CPD points. And as a result, just ensure that you've written your correct names, ID number, and your KMLTB registration number. And then finally, once we credit your 3 CPD points, we shall be able to share with you through the email that you provided. We shall be able to share with you a certificate for this training. So colleagues, we have a learning portal, as I've been saying, when we were beginning, and I've also shared the link there. Just sign up. It's a one-time signing so that you can always register and find our trainings online seamlessly. Otherwise, from where we sit as LMSK, we want to take this opportunity to thank every one of you from across the country who found time to join in. And also, I also want to take this opportunity to thank our speaker today, Mr. Davis Wekesa, for the quite mind blogging and a very articulative presentation. We have enjoyed, and we look forward to more interactions. In case you'd still want to make further reference to today's live presentation, you can always get us on YouTube. So you can go to our YouTube page, that is Lab Medicine Society of Kenya. We did have this presentation live. You can always refer to it, and you can always learn or reach out in case of any difficulties. Otherwise, colleagues, we've come to the very end of today's presentation. And on behalf of LMSK, we want to wish you a very productive evening and a productive week ahead. Thank you very much.